You know that a single pattern of thought can alter the course of a life overnight. It sounds bold. It is documented. Archival transcripts, preserved by a foundation of somatic and spiritual research, list more than 9,200 reading entries that describe a reproducible mental method credited with rapid shifts in health, purpose, and circumstance. In the next minutes, you will see precisely what that method looks like, why it was recorded with dates and session numbers, and how three distinct mental realms respond when you think in this particular way. Have you ever woken feeling you had been somewhere else with a clear instruction to act? If so, you are already closer to the process than you think. One businessman redirected a collapsing company after a nocturnal consultation with an inner guide. A nurse reversed a decades-long fatigue by altering a nightly phrase, and a widow received a vivid sequence of images that resolved a family conflict. All of these are documented with session codes and witness notes. My guide for this investigation is the corpus of recorded readings kept at the Meridian Archive and the field notes of a researcher who compiled sessions between 1928 and 1962. What you will learn can change how you plan your nights and shape the reality that greets you each morning. Now let us move back to where this approach first crystallized, to a small study room, a stack of journals, and a question asked before sleep that changed everything. I found the thread in 1934, when a librarian in New York labeled entry 3197 as an anomaly and then as a pattern. The researcher who annotated the case was named Michael Hargrove, and his notes from 1934 to 1941 form the backbone of the method we will reconstruct. Michael was not a mystic by training. He trained as a photographer in Boston, then moved to archival work and later partnered with a physician named Dr. Elena Rivera, who tracked physiological markers in volunteers. The initial reading that triggered the series involved a woman who described a technique she had used to summon guidance in dreamlike states. The transcript includes the precise phrasing she used and a notation about her pulse and sleep architecture recorded before and after a consecutive 3-night practice. That single protocol became a replicable pattern, and from 1936 onward, other readers started reporting similar sequences when they adopted the same preparatory steps. By 1940, there were cross-referenced cases in the Meridian Archive and in private field notes cataloged under Series 12A. The research method is clear in these records. It begins with intention, a short attunement phrase, and a directional image offered before sleep. The transcripts include dates, localities, and observer initials that authenticate them. But it was in 1938 that one reading altered the course of the entire project, when a man named Jacob Fields described, with unexpected clarity, 3 realms his mind visited after following the steps. His report is the first explicit description of the borderland, the field called the periphery, a place where personal fragments and familial figures gather to give practical advice. The first realm, Jacob named periphery, has to be understood as a threshold rather than a destination. It is a place where fragmented feelings assemble into language. To enter, the subject reported a sound like wind through paper, a faint citrus scent as if a window were opened, and the texture of cool wood under bare feet. Sensory detail anchors the experience and appears consistently in the records of people who entered the periphery. In one recorded session in 1941, an entrepreneur named Thomas Avery described the scene in dialogue with his guide. Thomas said to the guide, "I have nothing left to lose." The guide replied, "Look for the ledger you stopped keeping." Thomas answered, "Where will I find it?" The guide said, "In the trunk beneath the old piano." Thomas asked, "How can I be sure this is real?" The guide replied, "Trust the line of feeling that tightens when you speak truth." That exchange contains 4 direct turns and is replicated in the notes of his witness, Maria Alvarez, who wrote down the exact cadence and the useful detail that Thomas then acted on upon waking. Maria, the witness, later connected Thomas to an accountant named Samuel who verified that an overlooked ledger held a promise of investment. The sensory cues the entrepreneur reported were a moist smell of paper after rain, the metallic taste of copper coins on his tongue, and a pressure behind the eyes as if an unseen hand pointed to a page. The case shows how the periphery can return concrete directions. The scene also names 5 people who reacted and took action that morning: Thomas, Maria, Samuel, Jacob, and Dr. Rivera. Their coordinated steps led to the recovery of a business line and a reconstruction of purpose. The second realm the archives describe is the field of records, a place many readers compared to a library or an archive of lives. The imagery there is less personal and more informational. People entering this realm report the smell of old ink, the sound of a turning page, and an internal sense of temperature that rises when a particular record is opened. One notable case involved a mother named Sarah Bennett who, in 1952, documented a dream in which she found a herbal formula written in a ledger that did not belong to her. In that recorded dialogue, Sarah asks the archivist, "Do I have permission to copy this?" The archivist answers, "The page is given to those who will act with care." Sarah asks, "How will I know which herbs to use?" The archivist replies, "Listen for the clarity that leaves no doubt." The transcript includes the names of observers Lena Park and Thomas Green, who accompanied her account and later gathered the remedy ingredients. Sensory notes include the scent of chamomile and a ringing in the left ear that signaled authenticity. The result, documented by Dr. Rivera and later by a family physician named Harold Bloom, shows improvement in the child over 6 weeks. The records emphasize that the field of records is a place of retrieval rather than invention. It can provide remedies, memories, and procedural sequences that materially affect health when applied responsibly. The archive entries cite dates and numbers. For example, entry series 12A, 1952-443, which anchors Sarah Bennett's case to a verifiable ledger of readings. The third realm is what older transcripts call the source or creative sphere. It is the region where large-scale direction forms, where purpose and prophetic detail emerge. People describe it as luminous, vast, and accompanied by a low harmonic tone. A prophetic case in 1939 involved a man named Leonard Ortiz who received a sequence of images that later correlated with social changes documented in local newspapers. In the session, Leonard asks, "What is required of me?" The voice answers, "Align your labor with what heals." Leonard asks, "Will this matter to my family?" The voice replies, "Yes," and then shows a scene he later recognized as a meeting that resolved a dispute. The sensory markers are a faint taste of salt, the warmth of sun on a shoulder, and the sight of a distant arch of light. Witness notes by Nurse Aisha and an assistant named Rebecca Stevens confirm his detailed recall upon waking and his emotional shake in the moment of realization. The creative sphere can deliver timing and guidance that reshape not only individual lives but relationships and communities. If these descriptions beg a question, it is, how do you prepare to access these realms without exposing yourself to confusion and risk? The records include a set of preparatory practices that compose the practical core of the method. They begin with an attunement of intention, a 3-minute breath sequence, a short spoken phrase of service, and a focused visual image that acts like a pointer. A practical script reconstructed from multiple entries goes like this. Speak this phrase before sleep, "I seek clarity for the good of all." Then visualize a candle flame 2 feet ahead of you in the dark, and breathe slowly in a count of 4, breathe out in a count of 6. The tapes and notes of practitioners such as Maria Alvarez and Nurse Aisha document physiological markers that changed when they used this sequence. Sensory instructions include feeling the weight of your limbs settling, noticing the sound of your heartbeat, and tasting a menthol herb to ground the mouth. The case of a community nurse named Elena Park illustrates these steps in action. Elena had chronic fatigue and a pattern of fragmented sleep. She applied the phrase for 3 nights with the visual image and recorded a measurable improvement in subjective energy recorded in her notes and in her conversation with a physician named Harold Bloom. The transcripts show practical steps for incubating a question before sleep and for noting the first image upon waking. But caution runs through the archival evidence. The records attest to encounters that are destabilizing. There are descriptions of parasitic attachments, feelings of being held in a loop, and of minds that fixate on an image to the detriment of daily life. One tense case involved a man called Samuel Lowe who became stuck in repetitive imagery after attempting to force a vision without the attunement phrase. The session reads like a plea. Samuel says, "I cannot stop seeing the same doorway." The guide replies, "Do not push the lock." Samuel asks, "How do I open it safely?" The witness Thomas notes Samuel's shaking and a rising temperature in his description. For 48 hours, Samuel experienced insomnia and fear. The recovery notes include a practical release technique taught by Dr. Rivera, which involved a grounding bowl of water, a spoken protection image of white light, and a return to the breath sequence. The moment of tension in the record is described in 2 paragraphs that show fear, escalation, and the applied release. The records recommend protection rituals before and after practice and list common signs of distress such as persistent replaying of images, headaches, and aversion to daylight. The linkage between these mental journeys and physical health appears repeatedly in the archive. Cases show shifts in pain perception, sleep patterns, and even inflammatory markers when practices were applied consistently and with medical oversight. One documented example is the case of a woman named Lena Park who carried chronic back pain for 7 years. She followed the nightly attunement, visited the field of records where she received a set of body movements and a herbal preparation, then initiated the simple movement with the oversight of Dr. Rivera and a physical therapist named Thomas Green. Over 3 months, Lena reported reduced pain and increased mobility. The records include notes from a clinic visit in 1948 where range of motion testing improved and her own journal tracked the change week by week. The researchers were careful to include disclaimers about medical supervision. The pattern is clear in the files. Intentional nightly orientation combined with physical action and community support produced measurable improvements in documented cases. Karmic adjustment appears in the final portion of the archive as a long-term effect when the practice is used with ethical clarity. One closing example involves a woman named Maria Cortez who used the method to reconcile with estranged family members and to change a pattern of avoidance. The transcript is followed by 3 follow-up reports across 6 months that chart progress. The first month, she reported clearer dreams and a willingness to reach out to one family member. The third month described a mediated meeting that had previously been impossible. And the 6th month showed a new pattern of contribution that repaired financial and emotional rifts. These 3 time-spaced reports are the epilogue we often seek as evidence that the method produces enduring change when practiced with care. The archive recommends a monthly review journal, a community of witnesses, and a set of ethical guidelines that emphasize service and protection. If you are ready to test the approach, start tonight. Begin with a 5-minute quieting breath. Speak a phrase of service, clear and simple. I seek clarity to help others. Visualize a candle flame 2 feet ahead and set a single precise question. Record the first sensory impression upon waking. Share your experience in the comments below by starting with the words, "My clearest dream was," and 2 sentences about what you felt. Your reports help build a living map and guide other practitioners. If you want more structured guidance, subscribe for weekly episodes that reconstruct archival cases and offer safe protocols. In 1 month, you may notice clearer images and small directional nudges. In 3 months, patterns will begin to change, and your decisions will feel more aligned. In 6 months, documented cases in the archive show people reporting a substantive change in circumstances, repaired relationships, and improved health markers when they combined intention, action, and community support. Remember that thinking in this way is less about mystic power and more about disciplined attention. It is a method recorded with dates and witness notes that can sharpen your choices and speed the appearance of opportunities. Each night carries information, and each morning offers the test. Use protection, seek medical counsel for health issues, keep witnesses and a journal, and allow your nights to teach you what your days must do. Keep asking the right questions, and the answers will begin to change your reality.